Welcome to the Once Blind podcast. Your host, Carlos.
Hey guys, welcome back to Once Blind. You already know, I got the lovely Durka with me.
Hello.
Today, I was thinking we do homeschooling fears, right, in the beginning, and kind of where you are today. Seeing, whether they're still there or not. If they're not, what helped you get through it? Maybe talk a little bit about curriculum in the sense of how you saw yourself in the beginning to where you're at today as well.
Okay.
Sounds good to you?
Absolutely.
All right.
You said curriculum, I did a triple.
Oh, no.
Exactly.
So, one of your biggest fears in the beginning, what was it?
For me, it was failing the kids.
Okay. Elaborate.
Well, because you are convinced by society that the only person that can teach children is someone with a degree, and that you have to go to school for many, many years to get that degree. And so I didn't have the degree, and I thought that what could I give my kid? Like, what could I?
But when you grew up, because I know for me, a lot of my teachers were idiots.
Yes.
So, it didn't matter that they had a degree.
Right.
They were idiots.
Right, but I was still indoctrinated. I have none of those fears today.
No, and I'm with you because I don't think I had a fear whether we could or could not teach them along that line. My fear was more of, and then what?
What do you mean?
Well, fine, we get them through the grammar, we get them through the high school. Now what? Like, what are colleges going to do?
Will they be accepted type of thing?
Yeah, because they weren't indoctrinated or formed in the way they want them.
Right.
Because colleges also want to continue that indoctrination.
Absolutely.
So it was like, what then?
Well, what helped you? I know we haven't talked about what helped me, but what helped you with that?
Well, because you pointed me to the fact that there's so many actual trade schools.
That's
not like Lincoln Tech or those stupid schools that just take your money and do nothing for you.
So many, yeah.
You said there's so many trade schools, and I want my kids to be entrepreneurs. I don't want them to work for somebody, the way I have to now. So,
well, I think that so we haven't even gotten to what got me away from that thought, but back to your thought was we went to a homeschool convention before we started homeschooling because we just kind of wanted to look around and talk to people and stuff like that. And one of the things that we realized is that there are actual colleges that go to homeschool conventions willing to sign kids up to college.
Yeah.
So there are people recruiting at homeschool fairs, conventions for colleges. And that gave me a little bit of peace. And at that point, Matt was like 4. Our oldest was 4. So that gave me that relief. And actually speaking to the college recruiters, they said to me and to you, that homeschool kids are more mature. They are self-starters. Like, they don't need a teacher telling them, like, this is what you have to do. You have to hand it in by this day. Like, are you doing it? Are you doing it? Are you doing it? Because that's what kids do at school. Mm-hmm. And I would have thought that would have been the case with a mom. Like, isn't that what moms do? Like, hey, have you done it? But I guess not.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Okay.
So what helped me with mine?
That's what I was going to say.
I already forgot what it was.
You said you were afraid to fail the kids.
Well, the whole degree thing, right? Like you said, I had a lot of teachers that weren't the brightest. But also, as you know, I worked as a daycare teacher.
Yes.
While I was pursuing my teaching degree, which I never got because we had a baby and we decided I wanted to be home. So when I was working at the daycare, I was supposed to be an assistant to the teacher. But the teacher hurt her back.
Yeah.
And then she needed surgery. And so she was out for a very long time. She was out for, I don't know, months. And I was essentially teaching her class completely by myself. So it was 20-something 4-year-olds. I think they were like 4 to 5-year-olds. And I was completely by myself. And so when we started to pursue homeschooling and I would get that fear in my gut, I would think about the fact that I was getting paid to teach 20-something, let's say 5-year-olds, because they were between.
Yeah.
Completely by myself with zero knowledge of anything. And then, like you said, and there's so many teachers that we can think about that, like, they're just brainless. I had a teacher once throw a stapler at me because it didn't hit me. It like landed right before me, but he tried because I asked a history question. I love history, as you know. And he actually was speaking about something I actually found interesting. And so I asked a question, and he felt insulted. And he said that I was trying to trap him. So he threw a stapler at me. And I was just, I didn't even have really a chance to react because some friends, it was ridiculous. Some friends tried to hit him. But the point is that I was heartbroken that I couldn't ask a question. Like, I really wanted to know more about the subject, and I didn't know where to look. And that was before we had Google. I couldn't go home and Google. So he was my one access to information. And he didn't have the answer, so he felt...
Most of the time they're going off a book. I had African American Studies. I was forced to take that class, and it was interesting. It was interesting because, and I've said it before, it's what forced me to actually pursue my own history explorations and look for history myself, because I had one version of history on one side, and then I had the total opposite side, and it was like, wait, they both can't be true,
Right.
because this one says it's this fault and this and that, and this was like this, and it's like, wait, like everyone's just regurgitating whatever's on the book or whatever the agenda may be, because even the world history had an agenda. The African American Studies had an agenda. When I had to take world cultures, that had an agenda. And it was like everything in school, the more I wanted to learn about it, it's like you couldn't even believe or trust that you were getting decent information. So
yeah, not knowing what to trust. Like, yeah. So how I got over my fear of failing the kids is, I don't know if I've actually 100% gotten over it.
Okay.
I just trust God, right? Because what has happened, and we've been homeschooling nearly 11 years.
Yes.
What has happened in these 11 years is every time I have forgotten something or neglected something, like, for example, if I made a list of all the things that I had to buy, the curriculum, whatever, and then we would buy it, I would fix it up, I would organize it, and then we'd start school, and 2 months in, I'm like, I forgot something, spelling or whatever. God somehow made a way. Somehow someone would drop off a curriculum, or the curriculum, my God, just so happened to also hit on this topic, or something would happen. And just God always made a way. So he showed me that as long as I pursued him and left even this in his hands, that he would meet the holes that I left behind. And I was going to leave holes. But then that's the other thing that I realized. When we were going to school, at least at my school, there were levels of education. So, for example, 8th grade wasn't just 8th grade. It was 8th, in my school, was 8th A, 8th B, 8th C, D, E, and F, I think. And then there was like accelerated also.
Yeah.
So all the kids did not get the same education.
No.
But we still graduated together.
We didn't have that many levels, but we had special ed. And that would be just one room. Everybody goes in there. But we had 2 special eds. One was for mentally disabled, and one was for the kids they didn't want walking the halls.
Behavioral issues.
Behavioral issues. And then you had remedial classes. and then you had normal classes, and then you had what they called gifted and talented.
Right.
So levels, but not as many as that.
We also had bilingual and like another thing in between.
They only did bilingual for anything up to third grade.
Really?
So kindergarten to third grade. And then if you got to high school, they had ESL classes.
Okay.
So you had what they called vocabulary.
Okay.
Up to third grade. They didn't offer anything else. Maybe if you went to Columbus School or one of the minority schools, they still offered it. But then from there, you had to wait till high school, and then they would have ESL.
I know that when my siblings got here from Argentina, they were 9, 11, and 13, and they went to a town that had no ESL. They had to go right into English. And they had no choice but to learn English. And they learned it within a year.
Yeah, for me, learning English wasn't so difficult. I mean, I had the vocabulary class. There were certain words that I couldn't say. Even today, as I'm reading, I'll try to read a word, and for some reason my brain goes, read it in Spanish, and it's like, but I'm reading English. So there are difficulties, but it's really not hard to learn English because it's very similar in the sense of pronunciation.
Yeah.
So,
but I'll tell you, when I graduated high school, I saw kids graduating with us from the bilingual part of the school.
Still don't speak English?
That I remember from first grade when I was in bilingual. And I'm like, how were you in bilingual all this time?
Yeah.
It's just nuts.
Yeah. I knew kids that went to ESL, they went to vocabulary, went to the minority school, and still spoke broken English.
Yeah, exactly.
Like horrible English. Their Spanish was even worse.
Yeah, that's
because
true.
they didn't even practice that.
Facts.
So it was like, what do you speak now? It's almost like they killed the Spanish and didn't bother teaching them proper English. And I mean proper English because it's ain't that, and it's like, why didn't we expect better from them? They made us take English language arts, and that's not even to say just the Spanish kids.
Right. Yeah.
Even the American English speaking kids. You had to take English, you had to take language arts. Why didn't we expect people to speak better, period, so that we can have actual conversations without saying, what?
Well, I remember a girl came here from Colombia, I think, and within 2 years, she was in my advanced placement classes. And her English, it wasn't horrible, but, there were things that sometimes she would struggle with. However, I remember that there were kids that were born and raised here.
Oh, yeah.
That were in classes that were barely remedial because they couldn't speak English. And I'm like, what do you speak then?
I mean, look at the generation before us. Look at your parents. How long have they been here?
30-something years.
I've barely ever heard either of your parents speak English.
Yeah. I think 37 years we've been here. Yeah. My
dad didn't know how to speak. My dad could defend himself in English, but he didn't really speak it very well. He could definitely curse somebody out, though.
My father used to be able to speak more when he worked, but he hasn't worked. He's been retired for 10 years.
Yeah.
And not being around people that speak English to him has made him really lose a lot.
Yeah. Well, you don't use it, you lose it.
That's facts. Because I remember that I would struggle with Spanish speaking to him, and I would speak half English, half Spanish, and he would just tell me the words in Spanish as I said them in English. But now he's like, I don't remember. He's like, I've lost my English not speaking to anyone.
That, and he's old.
And he's 77, yeah, and deaf. But anyway, so I don't know if I'm ever gonna get over the fact that I feel like I might maybe fail, but I don't have the fear that I used to have. I do have a lot more confidence. But to be honest with you, if we didn't homeschool them, I still would fear that we were failing our kids. I mean, it's just part of being a parent. Am I doing the right thing? Am I doing the right thing? Should I be doing more? Could I be doing more?
Mom, dads think we got it all done.
You do?
Yeah.
Well, that's why you need both parents, the dichotomy of the balance of duality.
Yeah. You mentioned curriculum. What was curriculum like?
You mentioned curriculum.
No, you did.
I'm joking.
In the beginning, I mean, I remember, but I'm sure they weren't around for it.
Lucky them.
But in the beginning, how did you feel about the curriculum, right? Meaning, what curriculum? What made you feel that it was the best one? What were you willing to do, like, curriculum-wise? It's basically like, since it's the beginning, right? It's our first child that we're starting with. Lily's still not ready. You wanted to pick a curriculum, obviously, because we were Christian at the time, Christian-based.
At the time.
Well, we're still Christian, but
Right.
at the time, we didn't begin our relationship as Christians.
Yeah.
So that's what I meant by at the time.
You're right. Yeah, you're right. Yeah. I didn't even think of that, but yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
Sorry.
So, being that we were a Christian at that time, you were looking for Christian curriculum.
Yeah.
What made you pick the curriculum? And not that I'm not giving anyone a free commercial, so I don't think I'm going to sit here and start naming off names. But what made you go with the one that we went with? And obviously, we're not there anymore.
Right.
What changed?
Taking a deep breath. Honestly, I think it was a lot easier for me than it is now for anyone because there was a lot less options.
Okay.
11 years ago. And there was a lot of options 11 years ago.
Yes, there was.
Compared to 20 years ago when a lot of the people we knew were homeschooling. But for some reason, there was one curriculum that just I gravitated to. I didn't know why. It just was.
Well, we met the, I guess, creator of it.
Yes, he's the co-creator. He and his wife put it together. And he goes around and does like seminars and stuff like that. But
well, at that convention you were talking about, that was when we purposely went to hear him, if I remember correctly. No, he just happened to be there?
Just so happened to be there. That's how God is.
Yeah, amen.
Yeah. So it was interesting because, I mean, God is so amazing that if you signed up to that conference, thank you, and you volunteered to help, they gave you like a 5% off voucher or something like that.
Yeah. And wherever you helped at, you basically got to listen for free.
Yes. So I signed you up for something. I signed me up for something and whatever. So I end up going to the room where I'm supposed to be. I don't know what this is about. I just show up. And it just so happens to be the guy that created this curriculum. And I'm like, that can't be possible. Like, how is that? And then he started talking about the curriculum. And I was like, I do not want to cry because I'm not a crier.
Yeah.
Stop it. But I remember sitting there almost crying. I'm about to cry now. You're looking at me and you're smiling. It's not nice. I was just like overwhelmed with God's love. Because here I was like really torturing myself with like this one or that one, this one or that one. And there he was in front of me and I could ask him anything I wanted to ask him. And I was just like, and by the way, the one and only time he's ever come to Jersey to do a
conference. And he normally didn't do conferences either.
No, he does. He just never came to the Jersey one.
Ah.
And it was it was the one and only time he's ever been to the Jersey conference.
Sweet.
It's amazing. It was a miracle. And I just felt like, wow, this is amazing. So then I was nursing a baby. I think it was JoJo. And yeah, it was. Yeah, I was nursing JoJo. And I was in the nursing mom room, which was enormous because a lot of moms in there were nursing. And they're all, sitting up against the walls with their babies and nobody's talking and whatever. And me being me, I'm like, excuse me, everyone, I'm sorry. I don't want to interrupt, but does anybody know? And I said the curriculum and they were like, yeah, like attitude. And I was like, any like ideas? Because this is my first time. I've never homeschooled and my kids are this age and that age and whatever. And one or two moms started kind of giving their opinions and then more. And then they all, kind of started feeling more comfortable. And then we were all talking. And the consensus was everyone in the room had tried the curriculum at some point.
Okay.
A lot of them had felt like they could do better somewhere else, and then they had to return to their curriculum at some point.
Okay.
And I was like, okay. And really, we were just going to do kindergarten at this point. I was like stressing myself out for absolutely no reason. But then you bought me the series of his conference talks. It's like 9 CDs. Incredible. I still listen to them sometimes when I need the pep. He has an amazing amount of information about everything because he's a homeschool dad of 5, and he co-helped his wife homeschool. And, he just had a lot of wisdom. But since then, when I started to feel more comfortable, because what happened with the curriculum was it was all them. Mm-hmm. But as you go on through the years with them, they start to add a little bit of here and a little bit of there, outside curriculums. Okay. And there were certain things that I wasn't like 100% feeling. So I would replace instead of. So like if this science was one that they recommended, I was like, I don't like the science. So I would like buy a different science. And then it started becoming like that with a lot of the subjects. And I was like, I could just do this without. Yeah. Because it didn't make any sense anymore. And since then, we are doing something totally different, which was scary at first to think that the kids could just read books and do math and write some essays and that would be enough. But I don't know if you've noticed the last year and a half or 2 years now, the amount of information they have. Yeah. And it's all from them reading books. Yeah. And as much as I absolutely love, and they were telling me this the other day, they kind of miss when we would sit around and just read. I felt like I was often speaking to a void room. Yeah. Maybe because some of the information was above people's heads. Other times it was because it was repetitive for other kids. Other times it's because they're very ADHD, like their mom. And they would get lost, and your brain goes off. But now they're reading their book. And they, every so often you see them, they come and, hey, did you know that George Washington? And that sticks.
Well, in the other podcast, I was goading Jojo to give me more information. And he was describing, George Washington, the fact that they would fight in lines and how that was really sticking with him. Mm-hmm. And for me, I've noticed a big difference lately with them in the fact that
more sticks,
but it's also they're happier in doing their own work. Yep. So my whole thing in the beginning with curriculum was it's the annoying people that we knew.
Oh, my Lordy.
That, would act like, no, you have to use this curriculum because it's the only Christian-based curriculum. You have to use this thing because it's whatever. And I remember to shut a lady up. I did want to learn. I did.
It's good information.
More about science and so on and so forth, especially at that time because we really just started our walk. Mm-hmm. So for me, I did want to learn, but not enough. And this is the stupidity. Why are you selling me 12th grade book or a 12th grade curriculum for science when my kid's in kindergarten?
Yeah, he was.
So it was like, all right. And I kind of just bought it for me. And then I was like, yeah, maybe we'll keep it and the kid can use it. But it was like.
He did. He used it.
But that's the thing. Like, it was people like that, other people who,
they're out for themselves.
For me, it was the sense of the one company I'm thinking of, it's kind of like the Reformers homeschooling thing because, it's the best. Mm-hmm. It's got the most information and you can learn it the best way. And it was like, no, it was just overpriced. Yeah. Because it was math. 2 + 2 is always going to be 4. Oh, yeah. Whether I pay $1 to learn it or I pay $1,000 to learn it.
There's a lot of math. Not math, but there's a lot of curriculums that is like that. That's like, this is the right math because it speaks about Jesus. So if Jesus and the 12 apostles walk into a room and Mary is sitting, I mean, it's kind of ridiculous. But people look for that, unfortunately, and they make you feel like less of a Christian if that's not what you're looking for. Like the person you were referring to earlier about the thing, there was a book that the curriculum we started with told us to read, and it was a secular science book, but it was about flowers. Mm-hmm. So it wasn't like the creation of the world. It was just about how how, what the pestle is and what is the stem. And
photogenesis, all that stuff.
Yeah, it was like basic children's stuff. Yeah.
Okay. I remember.
You remember? And how the chlorophyll. Yeah. I always confuse chlorophyll and chloroform and never do that because you can kill someone.
Or they can have a good nap.
Or a good nap. Yeah, so it's just basic stuff that you don't need the right Christianity for. It's just, and she was like, how could you read that book? It's written by a secular, and I'm like, it's about plants. Like, simmer down. It's not just that it's about plants, because yes, you can get to a point where that becomes secular. However, it's for like third graders. So we're not talking about,
Yeah. Well, I think that's the problem, because as Christians, you kind of do want to stick to creationism.
Right.
You don't want to take out evolution in the sense of...
Some people do.
No, I know, but you really don't want to take it out because you want them to know these things.
We did, yeah.
I've come to notice that for homeschoolers to then go to college,
Yay.
It's been a very low number of those that continue to be Christian.
That's right.
Because they get to college and now someone's explaining to them evolution.
Right.
And it's the first time they've ever heard it.
Correct.
And since they are already struggling with their faith, here comes this new aspect of science.
Yep.
And it's because God is dumb.
Right.
And this is cool.
Right.
This is what makes sense. They kind of run from the, because let's face it, if you don't have a relationship with Christ, your faith is probably low.
Right.
And if your faith is low, you have no credence to his word. Like, it doesn't mean anything to you. So now the things that you have to have faith for, like, you know what? We know that creationism is real, right? We know that God spoke and it came to be. But that's our faith.
Correct.
If our faith is not strong, then it's just words. Now it's these words that some guy in the sky created everything, or hey, in a million billion, because they keep adding zeros.
They do.
Right. There was a big bang, and there was this, and there was that, and then this formed this, and that formed that. That makes more sense to a child who's already struggling with his faith.
But they like to use the word evidence.
Yes.
Right. So they will tell you there's evidence for this and this. There's evidence, except that if you really look into that evidence, it really isn't evidence at all. Mm-hmm. Oftentimes it's some doctor or whatever who has skew things to make a name for himself. But my point is that when you, it's a duality. I feel like a parent who is unwilling to teach their kid about evolution doesn't know the necessary amount about creationism. Yeah. And so they're scared to teach their kid about evolution. Yeah. I'm not going to say we know everything. Yeah. 'Cause obviously we don't, but I'm secure enough to teach my kids about evolution because I can answer questions about both things. Yeah. So, and oftentimes what I was trying to do is something I learned from you, which is to not beat the kids over the head. And not that you do that with the kids, but I mean, like when you speak with adults, you try not to give them the answer, and you try not to beat them over the head with the answer. You try to lead them to the answer by asking them enough questions. Yeah. So what I would do with the kids in reference to evolution, and a lot of other things like, abortion and that kind of thing, when we would talk, and even things concerning politics, I would say, well, this side thinks this and this side thinks that. And I would give them, look at this video or look at this book, whatever. And they'd go, oh, but why? And then I'd go, well, I don't know. What do you think? Oh, probably because of this. Okay. What does the Bible say about that? Well, the Bible says this and that. Right. So what do you think? Well, it doesn't make any sense because correct. So do you think we could find evidence for that? Yeah, because, when the bees come and right, that makes sense, right? Yeah. So you're leading them to the information, and now you're not indoctrinating them. You're gifting them with the ability to find information on their own.
Yeah. Well, anyone who knows me always hears me say words matter.
Absolutely.
Right. And words are important. They're in there for a reason. And it was really nice to see the two older ones. We're having a discussion on evolution and the fact that it's called a theory. And when they heard the word theory, right, they were like, well, if it's a theory, it's like a hypothesis and yada, yada, because they kind of learned all that. So they were impressing me. And it was like, well, then it's like a hypothesis and blah, 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 blah. So if it's a theory, it's not a fact. It's just an idea. And if it's just an idea, why does the book say it is fact? Or why does the book say that there is evidence? Because if there was evidence,
It wouldn't be a theory.
It wouldn't be a theory. It would be what they call a law, right? And it's interesting that people don't realize, like you said, I like to, even teaching the Bible, leave holes. Mm-hmm. And for parents, this is something that it's a good practice to have. You leave holes and allow them to fill those holes. Because what happens is one, they have to critically think how to get to that place, right? It's like it's like an infant with that little toy that has the star hole, the circle hole, the heart hole, all those different shapes. And he's got to find what fits.
Right.
And if you can teach a child that, as he gets older, he will still think in that manner. And then what happens is, as an adult now, he's in the real world, he's going to be able to quickly think, okay, something's wrong here. This isn't fitting. Let's find what fits, or abort and run. Like, there's an issue here. And I wish more parents, instead of, especially in Christian circles, I wish they would stop trying to educate their children with the because I said so.
Well, we're going back to, I feel like they don't have the answer. Instead of looking for the answer, they...
Well, I mean, that's the thing, though. Like, for discipline purposes, yeah, it's because I said so. Like, I get that aspect. Like, it's what it is. You also got to teach them what it's like to work for somebody. Mm. If they say, hey, you need to be here at this time, well, guess what? At this time, you need to be there or you get fired.
Right. Yeah.
Right? So there's things that you teach them not to question, but you want to teach them to question every bit of information that people are trying to give them. And that's the problem, is that we don't have free thinkers anymore. Mm. And if you want a child to have a strong faith in Christ, right, as you're trying to raise him through, you got to train him up. Mm-hmm. Like the Bible says, right, train him up and he shall never depart. Right. That does not mean, training isn't telling them what to do and how to do and what to look like. Training them is teaching them to do it on their own. Right. So it's kind of cool because this new curriculum or method of curriculum that we're using, right, because it's more of a method, is working for us in the sense that our kids, guess what? You don't pick up your book, right? Because we treat homeschool like a gift, or not even a gift. It's a privilege that we have. So your chores aren't done. Yeah, you got to go do chores. You got to take care of responsibilities before you can have fun. And God is good. Amen. They will get everything done, and then they'll take their book. And it's cool for some of them because they like to be alone, right? So they take that time to go be alone, read their book. Then they'll come back and discuss it. And it's really cool to see a child get it. Not because you gave it to them, but because they searched it out. And then for them, it becomes theirs. Yes. Right? It's something they achieved, something they found. It's theirs. It's interesting, and I laugh whenever even Joaquin or Luna, they'll learn something and they'll act like they're the only ones that learned it, so they'll come and try to tell us. Right. And I know for some people that'll be like, oh, well, why is my kid trying to teach me? No, I want that. Yeah.
Well, actually, that's one of the ways you learn. You learn by teaching someone else. Yes. It cements it in your brain. So they don't even know they're doing it, but they're kind of cementing it in their own brain. Yeah. And they don't do that just to you. They do it to me. They do it to each other. Yeah. Which is cool because then they're teaching their sibling as they go.
Well, in that, right? So when you were... with the older ones at least, when you were feeding them the information, compared to now where they're searching and seeking the information on themselves, what's the difference that you see in their learning, not capability, but I guess ability to learn?
They're remembering things.
Okay.
I think that you've seen me feel heartbroken more than a few times when they say something and I'm like, we learned that in second grade or third or fourth or fifth or sixth. And they're like, really? And I'm like, oh my God, what did we do that whole year? Like I read to you for hours. Yeah. And I'm like this close to tears because I'm like, do you know how long I read to you for? Oh my goodness. But now they were able to like, what's the word? Like capture it in their brain. Like they're able to bring it up easily. But also it's not just regurgitating it. They really understand it. Yeah. But to not go past this without saying it, because I keep forgetting to say it. One of the cool things about them going off and reading a book and figuring it kind of out on their own and then coming back and talking to us is we're finding out their interests. Yes. And we're finding out what they're good at. And it's pretty cool because as you are developing this human being, you don't want them to just, like so many people, go off to college and in their mid-20s, they still don't know who they are. They still don't know what they want to do with their life. They still don't know what they want to even pursue in school. But they're in school. Yeah. And they're spending thousands of dollars to be there a year. And they have no idea what they want to learn. Yeah. And I know quite a few people that went to college and they just kept changing their, what is that called? The subject that they were learning in school. You know what it is. And they were like never able to graduate because they just kept changing careers. And that's not the word, and it's gonna bother me. But anyway, the point is that
major,
thank you, and their minors, like their majors and their minors, they would just keep changing them. Anyway, the point is that we have a kid who liked knowing why certain things happen in the body. And so I bought some books. They were actually curriculum books, but I bought these curriculum books about physiology. And the child just like got even more interested. Mm-hmm. And then because I saw that, I decided to print out some flashcards on like body parts and what they do and the nerve system and the structure of the body, whatever. And I would see this child drilling themselves with the cards, and just learning. And then if I have a pain or you have a pain, if somebody has something happening, this kid is looking in one of the books and is like, well, listen, if you have that and you do this and is your blood pressure high? And, like, it's just trying to figure. And that's pretty cool because that kid is already figuring out what they want to do with their life.
Or what they're interested in.
Which
is kind of, in words, the awesome part about being a parent and being in charge of their education. Because when you go to school, so I have a family member that went to university, right? And I think he's an accountant. According to his major, he's an accountant. But he's not doing anything in accounting. Like nothing even like close to it. Nothing.
He didn't even have to go to school for what he's doing.
Yeah, and that's the killer. Like, so many kids are programmed to, you have to go to college. I remember when you have to go to college or you'll never be anything.
Kindergarten, I remember being told that, yeah.
It's drilled into you. So him, like so many others, have gone to college, went and studied something, went in and paid so much money to, luckily he was good at sports and he got a scholarship, and we were poor, so there were other scholarships, but that worked out. He didn't have to pay that much, but someone paid and a lot of other people pay. And what happened was, for us at least, when we started realizing one's interested in this, the other one's interested in this, we were also able to shape their curriculum, right, into something that they would stay attracted to.
Right.
Something that would bring out a desire in them to learn more of it. Because for me, I liked math. I liked reading.
You're amazing at math.
I liked writing. I just couldn't stand the lies in history. And science, my thing is that if you can't explain something simply, and I think Einstein was the one that said it, yeah. If you can't explain something simply, then you simply don't understand it.
Right.
So my whole concept is that when I was in science, one of my science teachers was an idiot, and all they would do is hand us a book, and we would go through it, and it's like...
So one of my math teachers was like that?
Yeah, so it was kind of like that, but then you had the other ones that actually did understand the science, and what they would do is they would overly explain it with big words, and I'm in 5th grade, buddy.
Sorry.
I don't understand you, and nor do I want to understand you because you're putting me to sleep. And here's the thing, like, it wasn't even that he was so intelligent that his words were so big or whatever, but I'm a Hispanic. I don't know your words.
Oh, I hear what you're saying.
I just learned English.
Right.
And now you're throwing these like 8-syllable words for like egg. Like you could have just said egg, but no, you had to go and it's like, are you kidding me? So with our children, we know their strengths.
Right.
We know their weaknesses. We'll get like a math that caters to one of them.
Yep.
And the other one gets to do whatever we find that because they're fine with it.
Well, that's the other thing, right? I had no idea that there were even anything, such a thing as learning styles.
Yes.
Because at school, we all just did what everybody else did.
Yes. And if not, they'd stick you in special ed.
Or you just finagled it enough that you could just pass because the teachers liked you enough, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so, me too. But I shouldn't have. And so with the kids, I started to realize, oh, this one learns like this, and that one learns like this. And it was very interesting because, as you said, we were able to buy curriculum that specifically met the needs of each child. One needed to use their hands more, and another one needed it explained in like, diagrams.
And graphs.
And they needed to see it. And I remember it's amazing how good God is. Because I remember I was there with an 8-year-old and I was teaching something that I thought was kind of basic, but this kid was just having the worst time understanding. And you could see the glare. And I had explained it, I don't know how many times. I had shown him the book and the pictures and it just wasn't working. And I don't know what, it has to be God that inspired me to grab painter's tape and dry erase marker and write on our kitchen table. It was, you could write on it. It was not wood. And I did a thing with the painter's tape and then I wrote on it and I showed the kid and he started to erase and move stuff around. And I was like, you get it? And he was like, oh, and you could see it the second it clicked.
Yeah.
And I was like, this would have never happened in public school.
Absolutely not. What was it? I think it was sophomore year where I got thrown back into. I worked so hard. I got myself out of special ed freshman year, and then.
What did you do?
What did I do? No, I can't say what I did. I didn't behave. We'll leave it at that.
That can't be possible. You behave.
No. Remember, we weren't Christians till later in life. But anyways, so there were behavioral issues, and they stuck me back in special ed. Actually, they called it carteret prep. So it was like the little prison room all the way in the far corner.
Prep for prison? Pre-prison?
It's something like that, yeah. They were preparing us for prison. But I remember the first day, I'm sitting there, and I was like, yeah, I don't care, whatever. These guys are my friends or whatever. I'm going to hang out all day in one room, blah, blah, blah. And math was about to start. So every day, it didn't matter what we did. We did 3 things all day. Didn't matter in what order, however that teacher felt like doing it. And he was a jock, so he wasn't the smartest guy out there. He was really good with like biology and stuff like that. where he should have been a gym teacher. But either way, so we're there, and we're going to open up the book. We open up this math book, and we're in basic math. Now, no, you hear basic math, you don't really comprehend, basic math for 11th grade, 10th grade. No. Basic math for 2nd grade. This dude had us 2 + 2 is 4, 3 + 3. We were learning the times tables, 1 × 1, 2 times. I kid you not.
No, I believe you because I know there are statistics, right? And there are statistics that say that most people, I don't remember, I used to know the numbers, but it was something like 40-something% or 40 to 60%. I don't remember now. You can look it up, though. Actually, they're a lot harder to find.
Mm-hmm.
I remember back in the day, I used to be able to bring them up like that.
They don't want you to know that information.
And now I can't really find them anymore. But it's out there somewhere. Anyway, there's statistics that show that between 40 and 60% of American students graduate without a general ability to read.
Yeah.
So they're almost illiterate. It's called functional illiteracy.
Yeah, well, I mean, I graduated the same way. I didn't start learning how to read and comprehend things till I actually started reading the Bible. So when I graduated, it wasn't whatever, but math was my strong suit. I was doing algebra in 8th grade, graduated. They made me take, I forgot what it was. I think it was Algebra 1 or something like that, or Algebra 2.
Maybe geometry?
No, because I think in our high school you had to do algebra and then you did geometry. But they made me take senior classes. Either way, I was taking advanced algebra. And now the following year, I'm doing
basic math.
You don't have a clue how mad I got. And I threw the book at the teacher, and it's I'm not going to be going through this feces. This isn't some, I'm not a retard and yada yada, excuse the word, but that's what I said. I left out the profanity at least. But anyways, I was so offended. I was so angry. And it's I'm not going to do this. And then we were reading books that, made the Cat in the Hat seem like, curriculum. It was no wonder I didn't learn how to read.
Yeah. And
it's funny because I didn't want that for my kids. I didn't want them to, because of behavioral issues, JoJo has ADHD, right? Behavioral issues. Now we're just going to treat you like you're mentally disabled and you can't learn.
Right.
Right now, if Joaquin was in public school, he would be in special ed. And quite frankly, he's the quickest one to learn anything in our house.
That's a fact.
Okay, he grasps things very quickly. You need to teach it to him quickly, but he will grasp it quicker than anyone. Yeah. He reads on a trampoline, right? Because he needs to get that energy out. But hey, whatever he's reading, he's learning.
Well, see, there's something called vestibular exercise, and we have this need. Everybody does. Mm-hmm. This need to move.
Yeah.
Some people have it more than other people. Mm-hmm. And so we move our fingers and we move our legs and we move we move. Mm-hmm. And people with ADHD, they have it more so. So that's why swings are great. At the other house, he would go to the swing and just read while he swang and stuff like that. But that is missed in schools. Sit still. If you don't sit still, you're gonna go to the corner. You're gonna go to the principal. Do they still do corners? I don't think they do that anymore, right? Maybe the little.
No,
kids.
That's demeaning.
Oh,
no,
probably.
They can't do the dunce cap and all that stuff. They stopped doing all that. Now they just let the kids run wild.
Yeah. Well, medicate them.
Well, that's the new thing. Every kid has to be medicated in order to stay in school. They'll literally tell you, you can't bring this kid to school if we can't medicate him. I know a few
kids that were told, yeah. So it's, and then, well, back to the medication part, right? Mm-hmm. I always think about people like Thomas Edison, and I know a lot of people have feelings about Thomas Edison because in his later years, he took credit for people's work. But the thing is that back in those days, that's how things were. If you worked for someone and you developed something while working for them, that person that technically paid you got the credit. I mean, it's just how things were. And everybody then knew that that's how things were.
Either way, he wasn't the only one, though.
No, he wasn't the only one. But my point is like people have issues with him in general, not understanding that's just how things were. But
Okay.
I digress. The point is he was a kid genius.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that was him in his later years. But as a 13, 12, 14-year-old, so one day he came home from school, Thomas Edison, and he had a note for his mother. And the note said that he was addled, which means mentally retarded, and that he was incapable of learning and to not send him back. And so she said to him, I'm not sending you back there because you're better than this. She never told him what the letter said. He later found it as an adult in her paperwork. So she started to homeschool him. But around 12 to 13, he got a job helping the conductor on a train.
Okay.
And it would just go like to wherever and back every day. So it's not like he was gone all day. But he got that job because he loved to do experiments. And it was expensive.
Yeah.
So to get some pocket money to buy plutonium, like polonium and stuff like that, like he would just buy little itty bitty pieces. But imagine, to buy things, he got that job. So one day he was at work. He was 14 years old, and a little piece that he had bought fell out of his locker, and it exploded. And the conductor was so upset with him, he beat him in the ear, like, repeatedly, and it made him deaf in one ear. So yeah, when he grew up later, he was kind of a jerk by now standard, but he was a genius kid. And my point is that I always think of him. What if that teacher had been today and he had been here today? He would have been medicated and he would have never been the man that we know.
No.
Not just him, but there's I could give you multiple people like this.
There's enough people who were eccentric, I think the word is. And I mean, you can go to like Beethoven, right? Beethoven was deaf.
Yes. And at 4, he played his first.
So just imagine him in schools today. No, this isn't for you.
I think he became deaf later in life, but yeah, still. At 4 years old, he played his first composition. However, he didn't speak. He didn't speak till he was about 5 or 6. And the same with, we just said his name a little bit before, Edison. Not Edison, the genius. He lived in Princeton, and he was German. He was a weirdo. Einstein, thank you. Einstein also couldn't read until he was about 6, 7, 8. He didn't speak until he was about 4 or 5, and he couldn't read until he was like 8 or 9. And so they thought he was mentally ill. Again, another person they thought that was addled.
Yeah.
And yes, later on in life, he did some weird stuff. But the point is, the guy was a genius by any other measure.
Well, the thing is that creativity has... They've truly tried to remove creativity.
Absolutely.
Because in creativity is how you learn things. Like you start messing around with whether numbers or this or that, anything, you'll eventually get to something. Well, they don't want you to be able to create. They don't want you to be able to express yourself through, hobbies and things like that. They want you to be a button pusher. And the issue with that is that, bringing it back to homeschool, is for us, we have to unschool ourselves and get out of that method. So for those of you that are starting to homeschool, get out of the method that you think is correct because the school systems say that's not it. Sitting at a desk, staring at a computer screen all day, that's not it. You got to let him go out and play. I think it's the Peterson guy. I think his last name is Peterson.
Jordan Peterson?
I think it's Jordan Peterson. And he says you have to allow a child to carefully do dangerous things. Something in that fashion.
Like Jordan Peterson says.
Yeah.
That you have to allow your kids to do dangerous things carefully.
Something like that.
Yeah, that's right.
So the idea And why I love that, it's because it's going to allow that child to experiment. Okay. And you learn about gravity when you're trying to, bunny hop your bike off a curb, and you're going to learn about pain and certain things like that by falling. A father and son have a relationship, and, they wrestle and play fight or whatever. They both learn how to hold back. Even the parent is learning, like, I can't go this. And even my son now, who's 3, and he's a rough kid, like, he's rough. But he's learned, don't scratch daddy in the face. Don't do this. He holds back sometimes because he's so excited to, play fight. But he holds back because he's learning that.
You're teaching him empathy.
And that was the next word I was going to try to squeeze in here was, and then you also teach empathy. You teach them to know, like, I don't want that to happen to me. So let me not do it. And you learn how to, being that you have siblings, you learn how to play together, how to share. You learn what it's like when someone does not share with you. Mm-hmm. So you don't want to do that to others. And that's a part of the empathy. And we take that away from children. I mean, we've taken away recess. Okay. We've taken away, now we put them in, we've taken away a competition. Yeah. Okay.
There's a lot to learn in losing.
Well, it's not only in losing, but in trying and failing.
Yeah, for sure.
So losing is one thing. Yeah, you got to learn how to lose. But and a part of losing, which people would say they're the same thing, it's not the same thing. A child will lose a basketball game, by 1 point. Mm-hmm. And it's like, all right, but he gets demolished by like 10 points. It's either going to teach him, maybe basketball is not my thing, or it's going to make him want it more. Michael Jordan, freshman year got cut from his team, or at least that's the story we hear, right? It's Michael Jordan.
Right.
What did he do? Supposedly, and again, it's just the story. No one can really confirm whether it's true or not. Even Michael Jordan didn't. But he went and he practiced and he practiced and he practiced and he practiced, came back sophomore year, and he made the team. Before you knew it, he was at North Carolina, and before you knew it, he was taking the Bulls to 6 championships.
Amazing.
But he had to fail.
Absolutely. Well, there's another thing that we worry a lot, right? In this modern age, with children not having self-esteem, self-worth.
Yes.
And we think that by telling them they're beautiful and they're smart and they're lovely and they're wonderful and they're good just the way God made them or whoever made them, the way they were made, is enough. And it isn't.
No.
We've never had more depressed children. We've never had more the self-harming. We've never had more people take their lives than we have seen in the last 15 years. And for the least amount of things. Like it used to be that something like horrendous would happen and somebody would take their life. And now it's like someone breaks up with you and they take your life. And it's like, you dated her for 4 months. What are you doing? You're 14. And the thing is that that is not how you attain self-worth. They have actually found that when people try, and struggle and fail and try again and they do better, that's where they get self-esteem from. That's why kids who pursue a sport do better in life. And I don't mean they're like successful sports agents or something. I mean, like they stay away from drugs, they stay away from partying, they stay away from doing really stupid things because they have a desire for something. They haven't. I'm good at something. I'm not going to ruin my life. Like I'm good at this. I'm going to, and if you take everything from a kid, like for example, we're going to have sports, but no one's going to lose. We're going to have sports and no one's going to win. Then what's the point? Yeah. You're sucking the marrow out of the, like what's the point, right?
Yeah. And again, that's also for parents that are homeschooling. You got to be able, right? And this isn't belittle. Don't belittle. But you got to be able to tell your kid, it's like, bro, you're so wrong. Like, no. Let's get back to the drawing board here. Let's work on this a little bit more. And you got to be honest with them, because in ministry, and dealing with children, as much as I didn't want to do children's ministry, there was a young girl, maybe 8 or 9, and she could do no wrong. No wrong. And I'm pretty sure you'll remember exactly what it is.
I already knew.
She was told she's a princess every day. She showed up to the church in princess dresses. I thought they were costumes. No, the mom would actually buy her those types of dresses. She had a doll and all the way.
She had hoops, like the hoop dresses, like the hoop under it, like.
So she, and again, I've seen her. Now she's 12, still wearing the same dresses at that time. Still with the dolls that match her outfit, so they were both wearing. She's 12. I'm like, okay, so I met this family. She was 8. Now she's 12. She's still everything. And now I'm doing children's ministry, and I have her in my class.
12-year-old, yeah.
And I'm asking children, Bible questions and so on and so forth, and she's getting it wrong. She didn't know. So, me being the guy that I am, told her you're wrong. Why did she fall apart crying? You're 12 years old. It's not like I said, you idiot, you got it wrong. You idiot, Stimpy. It wasn't that. It was, no, that's not true. That's not in the Bible. No, I would ask questions on what we covered that very day, and actually what I do is ask questions in the beginning so that I know what to spend more time in as I'm teaching whatever that lesson is. And then in the end, I make sure that I ask similar questions to see if they got it. And then I can have conversations with them later, like, hey, you didn't know this at first, but now you know this, blah, blah, blah. What does that make you think? And that gives us time to actually dialogue about what we learned. And then I would encourage them to go and tell their parents what they learned and ask their parents if they learned anything at Sunday service.
Yeah.
So, no games.
No games. Okay. But yeah, so she fell apart because she didn't get something right. And you had to correct her, because with a room full of kids, if you didn't correct her, the other kids then left thinking that what she said was true. So you had no choice but to correct her.
Yes. And you know what the saddest part about it is that at that time I was doing 1st grade, 2nd grade, 3rd grade, 4th grade, and 5th grade.
She was in 5th grade.
At 12 years old, aren't you?
She shouldn't have been in your class.
No.
What was she doing in the class? Oh, that's right. Never mind.
Yeah. So she wasn't supposed to be in my class to begin with. She was 2 years too old for that.
But she didn't like going to the older kids because
and because they didn't want her to cry, they would put her into my class, which I strongly said no to. But then I was told I need to be more like Jesus and enable people. I just don't remember Jesus doing that.
Never. I need to also say there was nothing wrong with her mentally. Just to be clear, because a lot of times people want to go, well, maybe she was on the spectrum. No, there was something wrong with her.
No, the mom was
very spoiled. Probably. Yeah.
No, the mom had to have been. There's no way you didn't see what you were doing to your child as wrong.
Her mom had her very late in life, and it was her only child. And I feel like she wanted to keep her a baby as long as humanly possible. But also...
God can do miracles. That's all I'm going to say.
But also the girl was very, very, very tiny for her age, like physically speaking. So she didn't look her age.
Okay. I'll give you that.
She was older than our daughter, and I never realized that until later.
So, parents, you have to tell your kids they did wrong.
Yeah, it's important.
You have to let them fall. You have to let them compete. All these things that today's society is telling you, no, that the public schools are trying to strip them from. Find a way to add that to your homeschooling curriculum if you want.
In particular, if you have boys.
Yes, boys need to conquer.
Absolutely. So boys' schools, what do they call, like boy-only schools?
Sure.
They do really, really well. And a lot of times people would say, oh, of course, it's because the girls are in there to distract them. It has nothing to do with girls not being there to distract them. It has to do with the fact that in boys' schools, there's a lot of competition.
Yeah.
And so it's like, instead of, asking each kid a question or something, they would do like groups, and whoever wins that then gets 10 points, and that goes to whatever, and you're in this category, like you're the blue group, and if the blue group at the end of the week has gotten the most scores for the school, then they get this pizza party or whatever, and it just becomes a thing of like we're the guys, and whatever. So boys schools do really well, and as well as girls schools do well, but for a different reason. So it stinks that our society, particularly public schools, have taken out the ability for kids to move around, to explore, to ask questions, and to compete with each other. It's like they're sucking the life out of these kids.
And well, it's not only sucking the life out of the kids, but it's the sense of sucking the
joy
in education out.
Absolutely.
Because look at a child's face when he's learning something, and
it's one of the best feelings.
It's not only the best feeling for you, but you see this child and he lights up and he got something, especially if he works on it on his own or does a project. Look at them when they'll color. Our 3-year-old will scribble on a piece of paper, and when he's done, when he decides he's done, he's proud of himself, so right? And as a parent, that's when you tell the kid, good job, way to stay in somewhat of the lines. Like, you find the compliment somewhere in there to give them because they're 3. Now, if your 15-year-old is coloring outside of the lines and it's all scribble, then you tell him, bro, like, did you have Giddy do this for you? Like, what happened here? Because you know your child and you know what they can handle. At 3 years old, you don't want to crush a child. But as they get older, right, even 5, 6, 7, then that's when you start adding in the critique because they need the critique. It's the only way they're going to know this is wrong. I got to try to do better. And the reason you do that is not only because it's essential for development, but it's essential for the fact that when you go to work, when you go to work and you do something perfect, if you got that type of boss, he's going to say, I could have did better. Like, you just got to understand that that's life. And if they don't get that now as young children and they go to the real world, this is why, like you said, there's so much self-harm, right? It's why it is. Kids today, you can't. When we were children, we would make fun of each other. That's another thing that's missing.
That's how we played. Yeah, right? We played around.
Your mama jokes and so on and so forth. Like, we talk smack to each other. Right. And that kind of sets you up for when you're in the real world and someone's talking smack, you have no restraint or able to hold back. Right. You're going to go into the real world. Someone's going to say something to you, and this isn't only a public school problem that we have now. Uh-huh. It's also through social media because of, the cyber bullies or whatever. I call them internet tough guys, right? Because that's the only place they're ever going to be tough at.
That's a fact.
So the aspect of it is they're not making fun of each other because they're not allowed to. Now they're super sensitive. Now there's fat shaming and there's this shaming and there's that shaming. And, you can't do this type of shaming. But now look at people. Look at people today. They're overly sensitive. They cry over everything. Okay, we gave them the name, snowflakes, because they have meltdowns over every single thing. And then when you don't agree with them, they want to tear your head off because everyone's always agreed with them.
Yeah, that's a problem.
It's just, and again, it starts with, this is what the public schools have put out.
Yeah.
This is, again, if we're going to go back to fears, these were the things that helped me not be fearful.
That's awesome.
Okay, is watching the product.
Absolutely.
Right, that public schools and even some private schools have been putting out there. Okay, this is why for us there's no social media with our children because we've seen the product of what that does.
And the stats.
Okay,
there's statistics on the stuff. It says that girls who join social media become more self-harmers, and they develop depression and other eating disorders and stuff like that. Like, what's the point? What the key here is that parents don't ever want to say no, and they don't want to be the bad guy. And you have to understand, you are the bad guy.
Yeah.
Okay, you're either going to be the bad guy who says no, or you're going to be the bad guy that didn't say no, and now your kid is hurting themselves and needs therapy or medication, or God forbid loses their life. So either you...
Well, the parent has to be a balanced person to begin with.
No, but I mean, in your mind.
Mm-hmm.
You're either the bad guy because you're saying no, or you're the bad guy for real because you decided to be their friend and now your kid is hurt.
Yeah, but you also have the parent that says no to everything.
Yeah, you're right.
And that's why there has to be a balance of... You got to be able to say yes to things that you know that are fine. You know, your kid wants to go climb a tree. Go ahead. Go for it. You know, just make sure that he's not all the way at the top. You know, once he gets to a certain level where it's life, you know, a broken arm, fine. But once it's like life endangering, then you're like, whoa, relax, come on down. Okay. But you got to be able to say yes to certain things. You know, they want to play a sport. Find a way, right? I mean, as long as it's not, hey, or hit trees with your head and stupid stuff like that, you know. But then again, the saying no part is really essential, because if you never say no to a kid, what's going to happen when no is the answer?
Their fragile ego explodes when they, you know.
How are they even going to deal with God?
Oh.
Right? God says yes, no, and later. Right? Or wait, right? We spend most of our time waiting on God. That's why Andrew Murray wrote a book on waiting on God.
Waiting on God.
Okay. The problem is that if you don't say no to a child, as a child, they could put their lives at a certain risk, and you might not see the effects of it then, right? But you'll see them later. And it's to the point where, again, just look around you. Look around you. Everyone wants to either be in their own little bubble where nothing can harm them, which isn't good for them. Look at the social standards that people have. They can't even look people in the face anymore. Why? Because no one said, hey, pick your eyes up. Come look at me. Like all the things that people think, oh, but I don't want to be the mean parent. No, you have to be the parent, period. Whether it's mean at one point, whether it's good at another point, you have to be the parent. So I kind of wish, and I don't care if it sounds mean or not, but kids aren't for everybody.
No, they're really not.
Okay, and homeschooling. Listen, we want to help people who want to homeschool. Okay, homeschool better, right? We talked about our fears. We talked about how society's hurting, you know, the children, and we were all over the place. So we do want to be able to help people with homeschooling by being vulnerable and just how it affects our lives. But here's the thing. It's not for everybody.
No.
Okay, I know a lot of people, I hope they never homeschool.
Same.
Okay, I think the kid is better taking his chances with public school.
Agreed.
Okay.
I hate saying that, but it's a fact.
No, and that's fine.
Yeah. I'll say this. I feel like homeschooling is for every single child. 100% across the board. I know I don't know your kid. Your kid would still do better at home. However, it's not good for every parent. And as a Christian, I believe we have to sacrifice ourselves. But there are certain people that will never be able to sacrifice themselves. It's just, I have that parent, you know? So I think often about that. I would have done great homeschooling myself through high school by myself. I would have done excellent. I would have excelled. However, had I been homeschooled like kindergarten I would have I don't know if I would have been able to live.
No.
Seriously, you know?
No, I know.
And so when I think about homeschooling, people say, is it for everybody? Absolutely not, because my mother would have killed me.
Yeah.
And not that she was physically abusive. She was just absent in every way possible. And if you are that absent person, And I feel like a lot of times it's like, it's all over Facebook.
Mm-hmm.
It's all over Instagram. It's all the cool moms are homeschooling.
Yeah.
And so you want to be an Instagram mom, an Instagram model or whatever. And so, you're a little old for that or whatever. So you're just going to be the Instagram Christian homeschool mom. But the kids are not getting homeschooled. They're not getting any attention. And we know people in this situation, and the kid begs to be put in school.
Yeah. Well, not only do they beg, the kids who are in public school beg to be homeschooled, but the sad part for us is people, when we see a child at a co-op or anything, and they would rather be somewhere where they're getting some type of attention. Okay. And it's sad. It's super sad. And listen, for parents who have to both work, it may be difficult, not impossible. It may be difficult to do. There's ways around it, and there's sacrifices, like you said, that need to be made. But again, the point is, if you're narcissistic, if you're self-absorbed, if you're completely selfish, please send your kids to someone who cares about them. Don't try to educate them for Instagram purposes. Don't try to educate them for Facebook, because they're the future.
Well, yeah.
And you want them to be able, and not that they're the future, and they affect, no. Think about their future, right? Think about what it's going to be like. Like, you hear me say this a lot, and then people who know me, I want to raise children that if I die tomorrow, I know they'll be fine.
Amen.
And that's all I want. If God takes me tomorrow, I want my kids to be fine. So this is why we educate them. Because if I had them in a public school system, they would not be fine. And there's no way. These kids today are not made for this world. They have an illusion that everyone's going to be famous. Everyone's going to excel in some sport. Everyone. And it's
everyone's an artist. Everyone's amazing.
It's just astonishing, the fact that they sell this to so many people.
And they become addicted to the dopamine hit of getting the clicks and the likes and the stuff. And they start to do things that are detrimental to their entire future. Because if you think of a 12-year-old on the internet, they're going to do whatever gets them that click, that like, that attention. But that 12-year-old is one day going to be 20, 23, 24, 25, and is going to want to do something with their life. And that existence of them for those 12 plus years is going to be on the internet. And the person hiring them is going to be able to look that up and go.
But it's not only that. It's how many 20, 30-something-year-olds we know that can't do anything.
Oh, wow.
They can do an Instagram video. They can show me how to, I don't know. Obviously, you guys haven't seen me even edit these things very well, but they can show me all that computer stuff that doesn't pay anything, right? Because are you going to get a job making Instagram videos for people? And this is the thing, this idea. So when we were kids and there weren't this Instagram or Facebook or anything, everyone thought they were going to be the next basketball player, the next Jordan, the next this and that. And what would happen, right? Let's be realistic, right? Average height in the United States is 5'10". Average height, 5'10". How many 5'10" people are in the NBA?
Probably no one.
Not anymore. Muggsy Bogues is gone, right? There was only one Muggsy Bogues. So not many people are going to make the NBA at 5'10", even if you're a little bit taller. Look at how many teams there are, how many power forwards, how many point guards, how many this. There's only, let's say, just to have a small round number, 100. But millions are trying out for those 100 places.
I heard today a statistic, which is 1% of the elite of all college players of every sport, like swimming, basketball, everything, football, 1% of those people ever end up in The NFL, the NBA.
Yeah, in the professional leagues.
Yes, only 1% of those people.
Yeah. So again,
it's very little.
When we were kids, a parent either had to allow them to dream and do that, and then guess what? They go to college, they play basketball because, hey, they were good enough to make it to college.
Right.
But now they're done. What's left? Well, hopefully they got a degree.
Yeah, hopefully, yeah.
But what happens to most people who are in a degree? Statistics also say that very few people who graduate with a degree actually use that degree.
In that field, correct, yeah.
So we created a dreamer, and then all of a sudden, boom, he fails. Well, now today, everyone can get Instagram famous. Everyone can get YouTube famous. Everyone. And what happens is no one puts effort into being something outside of some Instagram character, right? So as parents who are homeschooling, you got to be the bad guy and limit some of this time and have them work towards something. Listen, if they can balance that in their lives and have a good balance of whatever social media clownery and then do the whole, working towards some type of goal, some type of trade, then hey, more power to you. But it's the saddest thing when you realize at a certain age, you did nothing with your life. Okay, you did nothing.
But even if you think about famous people, the only person I can think about that has been famous for a long time in social media is Joe Rogan.
Yeah.
The only person I can think about.
But he was famous beforehand.
Right. Exactly. But that's a great point because he's got a lot of avenues of being famous. So he brings in people from all over the place. So there's no one else that I can think of that you can say has been famous for an extremely long time online. So what you're doing is you're setting your kid up for a job that's not going to be there. So even if, so basically you're setting your kid up to be Santa Claus. Santa Claus doesn't exist. So even if he can like pretend to be Santa Claus from November, it's about when people start doing the Christmas thing, right? Like at the mall, like the guys dressed as Santa Claus, whatever.
Oh, yeah.
That November, right? So for 2 months, he's going to be able to pretend he's Santa Claus, but then like what happens the rest of the year? And that's essentially what you're doing with these like social media things. You're letting your kid, maybe one day he's going to be famous and you don't know, this person's out here doing it. Okay, maybe he will be, and maybe it'll be good for 3 to 5 years. What happens after that 5th year? You think he's going to have so much money and we're so good at investing that he's still going to have that money or what? Because you've seen this. We're not dumb, guys. We've already seen this. You know with what?
No.
Child stars.
Oh.
How many child stars did we grow up with the Disney Channel and the Nickelodeon Channel and whatever channel? Where are they now? We don't even know where they are, half of them. So we've already seen this.
Well, that's a longer discussion on another place.
On a different topic, yes. But the point is that we've already seen when you give a kid a thing that you think is going to make them super, well at taking care of themselves eventually, it doesn't happen. It's a very few people who can become famous at a young age, keep the money and keep the fame. So you're setting your kid up for failure when you're not giving them the opportunity to do something else with their life.
Yeah.
You okay?
No.
What happened?
Nah, I started thinking you're talking about, them not making it. I'm thinking of how most of those child stars were damaged.
Yeah.
So either way, yeah.
Well, they're fodder for horrible people.
So
but
I'm moving on from this because I don't want to think about it. I truly feel bad for a lot of them, especially because I grew up with them, and to see where they're at today because of these things and so on and so forth. But anyway, so I know that we started this with fears. And because we're both ADHD, we decided to go everywhere else. And I don't know, I think we had a very good conversation on different things.
I enjoyed it.
I want this to be a way for us to help you guys out, but we don't know how to help people out. So you can definitely email, write it in the comments, what things you would like us to talk about, and we'll try to stay on topic.
We'll try really hard.
Yes, and at least get that information out. But guys, homeschooling, again, like my wife had said, and I agree 100%, it's for your child. It's not for you. You know, it's for them, and every kid, you know, deserves a good education. Every kid deserves one, and an education that caters to their abilities, not to their programs or so on and so forth. But it's not for every parent, and it's something that prayerfully, you know, for those that are Christians, because again, this audience is generally towards Christians. Not that I gear it just for Christians. But generally, whenever you mention God or anything, and being that there's Bible studies on here, people are going to be like, oh, that's Christian, run away. Either way, based on most of the people that listen to this channel are Christian. Train your child. Do not tell them. It's two different things. When you read the scriptures, it's train your child. Their education system or their education program or curriculum, whatever you want to call it. If you're going to use a Christian curriculum, allow them to learn it. Allow them to live it. But then you yourself have to do the best of your ability to model that for them, but also be the type of parent that when you see them not living it, let them know that they're wrong. Let them know that it's wrong. Because my fear was that we were going to beat them over the head with Christian curriculum.
Interesting.
And we were going to put a bad taste in their mouth. And
for Christianity?
For God, forget Christianity and labels and religion. For God,
for like the Bible,
you know, than just their relationship with Christ.
Interesting.
So here's the thing: one of the biggest problems in religion and Christianity in this country is that everyone knows how to intellectually explain the things of the Bible, how to understand. Or seem they understand all the difficult scriptures and passages in the Bible. They're super smart, but they haven't been taught how to live it.
Wow.
How to have faith in it, how to believe it, how to even search for the evidences, right? Because the Bible says evidence for the hope that's within you, the evidence. They're not taught to seek out evidence on their own.
I love that. Amen.
You need to, as parents, and this is how I got over this fear, is learning it for myself. I will not beat my children over the head with the Bible says, the Bible says, the Bible says. It's look for it, find it. Let them come to me and say, the Bible says. Let them come to me and say, hey, Dad, I have a question in something in what I was learning today. What do you think? This is what I think. Have those discussions with them. In order to train, you need to practice.
Amen.
You got to allow them to be in situations where they have to practice that faith or practice whatever law or whatever character flaw they need to work on. They need to practice.
Amen.
Training them is not putting a book in front of them and telling them to read it. Mm-hmm. Half the time, the kid's probably not going to read it because you told them to read it. Yeah. So we'll end on this note, right? We talked about some of our fears. We talked about a lot of other things. Whatever questions you guys may have, comments, or that's what they're for. We also have our email if it's something you're afraid to put out there. If you have any need of help or anything like that, that's what the email is on there for. I know a lot of people don't like to ask certain questions, or they feel a question is a stupid question, so they're embarrassed to. When it comes to the education of your children, there's no such thing as a stupid question. There really isn't.
And it does seem so confusing because there's so much. And So
yes. If you want to talk about curriculum, we can talk about the curriculums that we have used and the ones we said nay to, and the ones that were good, they just weren't for us, right? Because what works for us may not work for you.
That's a fact.
So all those things, comments.
The only advice I will definitely give, because it's super, super important, is don't buy everything. Yeah. That is such a that is such a problem. Moms have this thing with like, there's a newer and better, there's a newer and better. There's this fear of if I don't get my kid the better one, I'm going to fail my child. And so they know that. The people selling you these curriculums.
Yes, Christian or not.
Absolutely. And they attack your fear of wanting to be a good parent. And they will even tell you things like, this one, your kid would actually learn algebra as if they wouldn't be able to, as if no one's ever learned algebra before this curriculum. And so please just don't like jump from curriculum to curriculum. There's so many pretty things. There's so much stuff out there. You're going to waste so much money that you will never be able to get back. And there's a lot of free stuff and no need to buy things. So that's my only like thing of advice is, and another big one is do not try to share too much with someone that is in pro homeschooling, because their answer to absolutely everything will be, then put them in school. And it feels demoralizing when you're saying, my child has another ear infection for the second time this year. You should put him in public school. You should put, what? What does that have to do with the other thing? So.
Yeah, if you don't want to be attacked, because that's really what they do is they attack us. Next time, hey, for those that have questions on, will people say, what about this? And what about this? Socializing, this, that. If you guys want us to do one on that,
I hate that one.
Write it in the comments. No, I know. But things like that, things that people say nay to, or questions of, or fears or anything that you may have, again, put them in the comments. One thing that you actually just like clicked in my head is, if for those of you that have been in public school, if you remember, we never finished the curriculum in a year.
Amen, brother.
We never finished history book. You actually took that book home, and if you wanted to, you finished it on your own. But
you got to do that? We had to turn it in.
Well, I stole mine. But anyways, so you confessions. No. You never finished.
That's fact.
History, math, none of the books. You never made it to the back. So as a parent who is homeschooling, remember that. Right? If you get a curriculum and you think, well, I started in September, we start in what, December?
I start in July.
We start the year in July?
I start the year in July.
Okay, so we don't even follow the time schedule that public school does, right? That's a part of unschooling yourself. But just listen, if you get a curriculum and your kid's taking it really slow, right? And it's not because they're not trying or anything like that. I'm not saying they're slow. I'm talking about, certain things are hard, and then they take a person longer to learn than others. Right? They'll excel in one thing, but that part. Don't be discouraged if, you're going on your, school's 9 months? 9 months, and they're still not done. They got 20 chapters. No, listen, slow down on everything else and let them just, play with that thing, or move on.
You would also be very shocked to know how little time teachers spend actually teaching from a book, because there's so many tests now. There's the state test for this and the state test for that. And they're constantly having to teach to the test. Yeah. So if they know algebra, let's say, is going to be on that test, they have to teach this amount. So there's very little of finishing, like you said, the curriculum, because they're constantly teaching to the next test, to the next thing. And so whatever you're teaching, you're able to teach, it's a lot more than they would be getting at school.
Yeah. And understand, they do go to school all day, but classes are 45 minutes long. Remember how long it took to settle everyone down?
Yep.
Remember how long it took to actually open up a book? Now teachers spend most of their time on their cell phones, so that takes a little bit longer. for them to get off their Instagram and stuff. So by the time they actually teach, it's like 15, 20 minutes.
Well, that's why there's so much homework coming home.
Well, yeah. So
like 3 hours. There's 2 to 4 hours of homework every night. Why were they in school 8 hours?
Yeah. So think about that. Also, when people tell you socialization and yada yada, remember how many times you got told to shut up in class because you were socializing?
School is not for socialization.
Yes.
How many times?
So think about all those things and don't copy them.
Right.
Listen, if your kid wants to, and that's the thing, like for us when we started, we still had the indoctrination.
Yes, we did.
So for us, it was like, we even wanted kids to get dressed in the morning before they started school.
I still know people that do that.
Like, no, look, there's nothing better.
You're comfortable.
Yeah. Than to be in your slippers, all comfortable, learning the way you want to. Oh, you got to sit down straight and shoulders back. No, slouch up on the couch with a book and, whatever it is.
Yeah, we've never had desks, but we know people that have desks.
Yeah. Actually, one of our kids has a desk.
Oh, but in his room, it's a regular desk.
Yeah.
I mean, like an actual school desk.
Oh, oof. Yes.
Yeah.
Little cubicles and stuff.
Yeah.
So the whole thing is that.
Yeah, whenever a kid gets highly distracted by his siblings and he doesn't like all the chattering and whatever, so he does best completely alone.
Yeah.
And so we got him a regular, like, adult type of, like, office type desk in his room, and he does better there. But that's one of those things about, like, everybody's different and they learn differently.
Yeah. Whatever. So find the niche, right? And these are things, again, we had to break free, or people call it unschooling, right? But they tell you unschool the child a lot. It's not the child that needs to be unschooled. It is the parent.
100%.
Right? We're products of that. Indoctrination, institution, whatever, prison, school system. So we need to break from that and not force that on our children. On that note, again, I'm supposed to tell you, for some reason, I don't know why I have to tell people, but like, share, subscribe, right? That's what I'm supposed to say.
Yeah.
Great. For whatever reason. This is a ministry. I wanted to get out to as many people as possible that we can help. We just want to help. So, like, share, subscribe. Any questions, please, in the comments or email. Either or, it doesn't matter. Anything else?
Oh, we've seen it all. We've probably done most of it. And there's no shame in having questions. And we're not trying to sell you anything. So,
but we'd also like to know where to go. So, and I didn't mention any curriculum by name because that's the thing. We're not here to do commercials. We're not here to sell anyone's anything. But again, if you do have those types of questions, we can privately speak and so on and so forth. Either way.
Thank you for your time, guys.
God bless.
Thank you for dropping by. Please remember to subscribe, to share, like, and to catch the next one.